I don't just read the book because the book guides me. I read the book to help me get to know the person, and he guides me. Christians are not just people of the book, we're people of the person. That's Jesus. And that he comes to us in the form of the Holy Spirit. So I decided I'd get a tattoo to help me talk about this amazing Jesus. But I didn't know what Bible verse to get. You know, John 3:16, Ephesians 2:8, 9, 10. You know, remember Leviticus 19:28 says, don't get a tattoo, but should I? I don't know. And then I decided, no, we're freed not only from our sin, but from our religion. What Bible verse would help me have conversations about this amazing freeing gospel? So I decided to get a Bible verse. I got Leviticus 19:28 on my arm, which is a fantastic conversation starter about Jesus. Starting with the dear woman who was giving me the tattoo, who's like, you want a Bible verse for a tattoo? Yeah, I said Leviticus 19:28, and she wouldn't ask. She wouldn't even ask what it was. She was like, all right, and she got grumpy. And I asked her a story and found out because we got an hour to sit together while she's doing this or more, and she's telling me about some of her abusive childhood and how religion had really let her down, and how it was a religion. Christianity was a point of pain for her, and so she didn't even want to ask. Later, I found out she was just assuming Leviticus something is probably, he hates gay people or something. That's what it's about. I don't know. I'm just not going to ask. I'll just do the work and then be done with this bigot. And then finally, halfway through, I just learned her story. And then finally she said, all right, I'll bite. What does Leviticus 19:28 say? And she's halfway through the tattoo. And I say, oh, that's that Bible verse that says, whatever you do, don't get a tattoo. It changed everything. It changed everything because then it led to a conversation. Well, aren't you insulting God? And I said, no, because Jesus has freed me not only from my sin, but from the letter of the law. He's freed me up to walk in the newness of life of the Spirit, giving me a new heart. So I understand there's a context for the laws of Leviticus and their laws of love given their context. But now I ask the question, how does that get applied today? Because I walk in tune with the Spirit, with brothers and sisters who remind me of the same voice of the Spirit.
I'm not in a hurry when it comes to your spirit, when it comes to your presence, when it comes to your voice. I'm learning to listen, just to rest in your nearness.
Well, good morning, friends, the beloved of God. This is, as stated in social media, just an opportunity to give voice to somebody I love and who I believe wholeheartedly needs to be heard. And I'm going to invite Jared McKenna to join me.
I wish it was under different circumstances. Maybe it's worth starting by naming the circumstances, Danielle. I think at the outset, it's really important to acknowledge the trauma that a lot of us are feeling because we've been invited into walking with the survivor. We've had more of a chance to process this than
Mr. Palmer,
Hello.
how you doing?
I've had this eye infection.
That's not good.
Yeah.
Why'd you do that?
Well, it sounded like fun.
Well, you know, when you have kids you're gonna end up with a lot of bacteria around you. And
That's- yeah, that's what I thought it was at first. And the eye doctor mentioned she thought it was a pink eye,
okay.
but I don't know. It hasn't spread to the other eye. It hasn't spread to any of the kids. But yeah, it might be bacterial. It's getting better now, though.
Uh-huh.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, been busy.
Yeah, is it that time of year?
It's that time of year when my work pretty much is starting right now. So 9 days until the official open enrollment.
Okay.
November and December is when it really gets crazy. And I mean, I have a bunch of courses. Like I was looking into, I was checking on my certifications. I have to get certified with all the companies I work with, which there's like a dozen of them. And it takes like 5-6 hours each.
Okay.
And then the
And
Jewish
that's every year?
holidays. What?
That's
Yeah,
every year? Okay.
Yeah. And then there's the Jewish holidays right now, and things have been busier than normal. But it's funny, like I joke about being a dilettante the rest of the year and actually working this time of the year, but I actually end up doing a lot of other things during this time of year while I am busy. I'm taking 3 courses for did I tell you about my counseling courses?
Which courses? Counselor courses, yes. I remember you in some of your couples talks, or one of them, you had mentioned that. I think Catherine and her husband, you had mentioned it
Right.
to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a while back. I haven't been able to keep up with all the streams and everything for the last 3 weeks.
Well, that's the thing. I've kind of been trying to do more chat streams and like talking to people instead of talking at people. um, I think talking to people is much better than talking at people.
Cool. Yeah, I agree.
So what have you been up to?
I went to Florida with my kids about 3 weeks ago, and so I did a vacation and got a little bit of sickness. The family got some sickness, so it's been pretty busy at work for me, but actually things just started getting a little better a couple days ago.
Busy work is good. You have 3 kids, right?
3 kids, that's right.
Oh, yeah, that's hard.
They I think they want me to dress up like a Snorlax. That's a Pokemon. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
For some reason, my son has gotten into Pokemon, and then he's kind of the leader. So if I can, I'm starting to learn, if I can get him in the right direction, it tends to get the others in the right direction. But he's into Pokemon right now. So
he is the firstborn son. You know what they say about the firstborn sons.
Not sure yet. Let me know.
Oh, the Bible talks a lot about about firstborn sons.
So what's your top 2 in the Bible about firstborn sons?
They are leaders in the family with lots of responsibility, and when they go wrong, they go wrong.
Okay. Yeah, I was firstborn, but I don't know. Maybe I shirked my responsibility for a long time.
So, I mean, it's a repeated theme in the Bible about firstborn children, like specifically sons, like firstborn sons having, I guess, more of a spiritual capacity to do both right and wrong, and sometimes being subverted by the younger child. Like that's the story of Esav and Esau and Jacob.
What was the first name?
I said Esav. That's how you say it in Hebrew.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's that story there.
Where the younger brother ends up subverting the older brother or something like that.
Yeah. I don't mean to pry, but how many siblings do you have?
I have one. He's 361 days younger than me, so we were very close.
Okay.
Yeah,
Almost twins, you might say.
almost. We got to play on the same sports teams, and yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, I
Did
grew
you
up.
have your birthdays together or not?
What's that?
Did you have your birthdays separate or together?
It seemed like Christmas and birthdays were kind of squeezed together. I don't remember that. I think we intentionally tried to, like have like 2 cakes or 2 parties or something like that, but I don't remember.
My sister, her birthday is 2 months apart, and my mom would have one birthday party in between the two. And it's like, you're cheating.
I think my dad, he basically gave us these spending limits, and so the party or whatever, there was a certain budget we had, and so we just worked with what we got. So we got the same budget, so we could have our own separate party, or we could just take some money and use that to buy something or whatever.
Oh, wow. That's actually really good. That's one of the things. Did you read Jonathan Haidt's Coddling of the American Mind?
My wife and I listened to it after you'd recommended it.
Yeah, I'm glad. I recommend it to all parents, and it's one of the things he's like, give your kids responsibility. Let them make decisions. Let them, and yeah, something like a budget, allowances, that type of stuff. That's actually good practice. Oops, I'll be right back.
All right.
Okay, so hopefully that if that worked, and if it didn't work, then I might just have to. Oh shoot! Hold on.
No worries.
Okay, hopefully that worked. If not, I'm gonna be in trouble.
Hopefully not too much trouble.
Well, I would have to drive home, so that would not be good. Yes. What were we talking? Oh, Calling of the American Mind. Yeah, I mean that seems like a really good thing to do as a parent for your kids. Give them budgets and let them experience some form of responsibility.
Right. Also, it's nice to be able to compare, your choices. It's like, here's how much money you have, and you want this now, but you also want these other things, right? You can't have it all, right?
Yeah. Oops. Hold on. So somebody's supposed to be getting into my house, and the front door. Yeah, I told you I moved.
I remember
Yeah. Wow, Paul Vanderklay showed up.
that.
We're chatting, Paul. You can click on the link and come on if you want. You should. So I moved, and somebody I haven't really gotten the opening the front door. You know, the one with the intercom that rings to my door, and I'm pretty sure I left the door open because he doesn't have a key. Hopefully it'll all work out. If it doesn't work out, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, we put a a keyless lock on our other house, and that's been nice. We just we even, like, when we were having stuff dropped off, we even would just tell the delivery person, like, here's the code, but I've got a camera on the front of the house, and
Yeah,
they know they're being watched. But yeah, we kind of just let some strangers into the house a few times.
honestly, you know, when I leave happy, I leave the door open, just because, look, if somebody's willing to be confronted with an 80-pound Rottweiler, that's and you know, I have this weird thing that if there's ever a fire, you know, but yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
so I leave my door open a lot when she's here with me right now. So
Okay. Yeah, one time I had the Google Nest thermostat, and it hey Michael,
Hello. Good to see both of you.
good to
Evan,
see you.
you guys know each other?
We've been in the same meeting one time, I think, for Grim Grizz's groping event.
Paul, you just
Oh,
clicked on
everything
I'll pin
everything went all robot-y on me.
the link is pinned on top.
I think it's your end, Michael.
No. Just click on the StreamYard link on YouTube. I pinned it to the top of the chat.
Hmm.
Paul Vanderklay is going to show up.
Oh, nice.
Hopefully, if he can figure it out. Oh, he figured it out.
Oh, nice.
Hey guys.
If he can figure it out.
Paul?
Oh, he figured it out. You're echoing, Paul.
There. How about that? That should be better.
Yes, you're no longer echoing. So one of the things I love about StreamYard, you can just leave the link. Anybody can come. Sometimes my Bible study got flashed once. But so you have to be a tiny bit careful, but you let people in, and yeah, it's I've actually been going on this Muslim Dawa is what Muslims call their evangelism channel. So he has like 500 people watching at one time type thing. And so I've been going on his channel a lot, EA Dawa. Yeah.
Well, this is very easy. I know you've talked to me about StreamYard before. I looked at it a little bit, played with it, but I just haven't had time to, play with much else from what I've been doing. So, but this was very simple.
Yeah, you can have up to 9 people on. Maybe that's a paid feature. Like you can only have 5 if you're not if it's free. And if it's free, it has this on. But one of the things I really like about it is I can even do things like this. So, when I'm doing Hebrew or anything like that, or this is one of my favorite images. Have I told you why this is one of my favorite images?
No,
How good's your Hebrew?
not good.
Okay, so you see the 3 lines above Jesus?
Yeah.
So the top line is supposed to be Hebrew. And first of all, it's anachronistic Hebrew. The dots and stuff were invented around the year 700, I believe.
Yeah.
So the sign would not have had it.
No.
But better than that, so the Jesus the Nazarene is spelled correctly. Stop it. The next 2 words, he kind of got tired of following whoever wrote it for him. So it's pseudo Hebrew.
Well, you know, if Pilate puts up the sign, how good was his Hebrew?
You know, we actually have signs from the Second Temple.
Really?
Yeah, the British Museum actually has some signs from the Second Temple with Hebrew and Greek.
That's one of the things I wish I had had more time when I was in London to get into that museum, because I know there's tons of stuff there, and maybe my next trip over I'll plan some vacation days so I can see some of that stuff.
Oh, another fun thing, you can put the chats up like that, and I'm simultaneously doing StreamYard at the same time. So this is on StreamYard.
Well, StreamYard is its own platform, so you can
Oh,
stream.
sorry. No. Twitch. I mean, sorry.
Oh, Twitch. Oh, okay.
You can stream to multiple platforms, and it's not using my internet. I'm connecting to their servers. You're connecting to their servers, and they're broadcasting however many. And you can do multiple YouTube channels actually. But you can multi-broadcast in lots of different ways. So, yeah, I've become a total StreamYard evangelist.
Say hi to your dog for me.
Oh, thank you. Say hi, Happy. Yeah, she's in the office with me today.
Yeah. I see you're hard at work.
Well, I was until people started bothering me. I got to see John Van
Paul, how'd you like Europe?
Europe was great. Europe was great. It was a great trip. It's
Do you know Michael and Gavin?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Paul, you know, some of your cousin's kids were my youth group students
Where?
in Mendon, Massachusetts. Some Nidams, Kevin
Oh
and
yeah.
Lydia.
What church were you in?
So it was Bethany Community Church, what they call it. There's Assemblies of God, but they went to the school there, the high school.
Which of my cousin's kids went to that high school? Do you remember their parents?
Kevin and well, I don't know.
Oh, Kevin and Lydia?
So it's Kevin and Lydia and Nidam.
Kevin and Lydia.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my cousin John.
Yeah.
His kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've both Kevin and Lydia are now married with kids themselves.
Yeah. So yeah, because I remember after we talked, Lydia posted on Facebook. She's like, "Why are you having a conversation with my dad's cousin? That's so weird."
John was my closest cousin. He's about 6 months apart from me, and so whenever I'd go up to Whitensville, John and I would always play together. And John's great. We always got along great. My younger sister and my cousin Mel never got along as well, but love all my cousins in Whitensville. Yeah, it's got to be kind of a weird thing for them to be like, "How do you know him?"
Yeah, just a little bit, not too.
Yeah. You guys just hang out here all day?
Well, usually we argue about stuff. So
Really? I can't imagine. Jacob would never argue about anything.
We don't just argue. Garth says, tell Paul I said hello from the Twin Cities. I don't think you know Garth, do you?
It's ringing a bell, but then
He's
again,
really tall with like this goatee.
Okay. Well, maybe I haven't met him, so sorry about that. It's more embarrassing meeting people and then forgetting about them. So it's this lumbar number is a pain, and it doesn't help when you get older.
He didn't come to Chicago, and he also didn't make it. Paul and I have talked about 3 years ago.
Okay, see?
Oh, right. He was on your channel.
Okay,
Yeah.
you got a rando slot?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, then I probably remember if I see him. It's easier remembering people when I see their faces.
He's a machinist. I think
Okay.
I remember him talking to you.
Okay, well, that's starting to ring a bell. So, Jacob, why didn't you get to Thunder Bay?
This is my busy season at work.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's like Jewish holidays, and I'm taking off for Cassidy's and Ferdy's wedding.
Oh, I'm so jealous. They get married on a Sunday. I mean, it's like Cassidy of all days. I can't spare another Sunday this year. Yeah.
So,
although we're talking about doing something similar to Thunder Bay in Southern California.
John talked to me today about it, and BYU Lobster Con is boiling.
I didn't catch that. What's going to happen?
A possible, maybe we'll invite Paul. Possible similar thing happening at BYU.
Brigham Young University?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's working. Ethan didn't tell you the official.
Jacob's a missionary to the Mormons now.
Ethan didn't tell you that Lobster Con 2022 was held at Thunder Bay. You didn't know that?
No.
So for 4 years, they've been having Lobster Con at BYU. The day I joined the Facebook group, the day before I joined the Facebook group, Latter-day Lobsters and Sorted Saints, they announced that they're canceling LobsterCon 2022. And I'm like, oh, you can't do that. I actually texted you about it. And I talked to Catherine, and it's difficult because there's church hierarchy to deal with, and the people are trying to deal with that. But so I'm like, you know what? How about we invite everybody who went to LobsterCon to come to Thunder Bay, which we did, and we officially even had an event which only Ethan was like the representative at, so that we didn't lose the 4-year streak, right? So LobsterCon 2023, the 6th annual LobsterCon BYU, I'm actually hoping that BYU is going to sponsor it.
Okay.
We're talking to some people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the new fascination with the Latter-day Saints there, Jacob? I heard some rumblings about that.
Some rumblings? Okay, so on my way back from Chicago, when I left South Dakota, I had to stop somewhere, and between South Dakota and Los Angeles, like the most convenient place was Salt Lake City. Absolutely. And I had never been there.
Oh.
So I go there.
And you went to the temple and all that stuff?
No, I didn't. The temple was closed because they're renovating. I mean, I spent some time, and then I went to the Great Salt Lake. There's this place called Sunset Beach, and so when I got the Google thing to where to go, it's like sunsets are beautiful down there, right? And yeah, I can't get into the temple.
Right.
Okay.
And yeah, this is a whole different angle. Yes. And so I'm like, okay, I'll wait for sunset. And I look at my watch, and it's like 3 hours to sunset. I had gotten there like at 6 p.m. I thought sunset, 9 p.m. is sunset, right? So I'm sitting there listening to your latest video about what happened at Synod, and then I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking, and for maybe the second or third time in my life, I felt a calling, and it was like, why are there no Mormons involved in our little corner of the internet? It's like the perfect. It's like, it seems like it's the perfect thing.
There are
right?
some.
I didn't know that.
Yes, there are some. There's a handful.
Okay. I know we have ex-Mormons.
Yeah, but we do have current Mormons too. They're usually in the comment section.
Okay. I would love to be put in contact with them. But anyway, so I had this other calling. Have I told my Mormon joke that Jews tell all the time?
I'm afraid. But
I've heard this one 3 times, I think. Maybe more.
So this is a joke that Jewish anti-missionaries tell all the time. Why did God create Mormons? So Christians would know how Jews feel.
I thought that's why he created Muslims.
Yes, Graham, I reeled in the big man.
Grim must be jealous. Although I pop into his live stream fairly often.
Well, he could get onto the live stream if he wanted to.
He doesn't have much stamina online, though. I mean, he only goes like a half hour. I know, Jacob, you hang in there. You've got stamina.
Yeah, you have to. he has to go smoke. That's the thing. Gar says, question for Paul when you get the chance. What are your thoughts on substitutionary atonement or atonement theories in general? I was just talking to about penal substitutionary atonement, to John Van Donk. So I'm going to hit you with something else. On Sunday, I went to Grace Community Church, walking distance from here.
Is that MacArthur's church?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So they give me a book.
Oh my goodness. You with the MacArthur tribe.
This is his book.
One of his books.
But it's actually a very recent book. Okay. And I started reading it and I'm like, why is he attacking Judaism?
Because he likes to attack lots of people. So they're just one on the list.
Yeah. But he's like, hey, we have classes starting at the beginning of every month, membership classes. You're welcome to go sign up for that. And I'm like, well, I mean, there's nothing wrong. I don't have to become a member. I'll go sit in on the classes. So I go to sign up for the classes, and I'm like, I'm not actually thinking of becoming a member. And the lady's like, it's okay, you know, there's no commitment, whatever. And I go to fill out their application and it asks, is Jesus your Lord and Savior? No. Are you baptized? No. Okay. And then they have a membership interview just to go take the classes.
I'm sure they do.
And this young man comes up, says to me, I didn't realize, and I thought, the lady in the line said, oh, they're just going to tell you what membership, you know, is like. And so, you know, in case you want. I'm like, okay. So I sit down and he looks at my application. He's like, Jesus is not your Lord. I'm like, no. He's like, well, you can't be a member. I'm like, yeah, I just wanted to sit in on the classes. I'm not a, you know. And he's like, he says to me, if you were to die today and God asked you, why should I let you into heaven? What would you say?
It's evangelism explosion, D. James Kennedy. Yeah.
And my answer was nothing. And Van Donk actually has a much better answer than I do. If he doesn't know, there's nothing I'm going to tell him, right? But I'm like, nothing. Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, then you're going to hell. And I kind of wanted to say, if God wants me to go to hell, isn't that where I should go?
You're so close to being a Calvinist. So close.
No, I mean, seriously. And they're supposed to be reformed, right?
Well, they think you can be dispensationalist and reformed. And it's like, no, you really can't. Yeah, they're kind of weird. They're kind of weird reformed. In my opinion. In their opinion, I'm not reformed enough, but that's just the intrigue of this whole little reformed community.
Really nice campus and a really nice library. I love
lots of money.
Yeah, that's obvious. Anyway, so they kicked me out. And I genuinely, when I was leaving, I felt so bad for that young man. He thinks I'm going to hell and it's his fault.
I don't know that he takes it that personally.
You weren't talking to him.
I would have loved to have been there for that conversation. That would have been fascinating.
No, I said to him, you know, I'm not here to argue with you, and this is why I brought this up. He's like, and I said, I'm not going to join your church. I have a different theology. And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, for one thing, I don't believe in penal substitutionary atonement. You've heard of it, right? And he's like, yeah, why? And I said, Ezekiel 18. And I said, you realize most Christians don't believe in penal substitutionary atonement, right? Which is...
That's not true.
Yes, it is. The Catholic Church has not declared it an official heresy.
Well, okay. Catholic Church has a fair amount of theology that leans a lot on substitutionary atonement too.
Not penal substitutionary. They've considered, the Vatican website has a page explaining why they did not declare it an official heresy, and the answer is it's too incoherent to be declared a heresy. But so that's most of William Lane Craig pushes a lot of things, including his new Trinity, which it takes a lot of chutzpah to come up with a new version of the Trinity. And I think Dale Tuggy And Sam are right. He is a modalist.
Yeah, I think that's what Bethel said too.
Yeah.
But I mean, public service announcement pushing is bad.
PSA.
Oh. Oh, Grizz. Well, how have you been doing, Gavin?
I've been a little bit sick.
Oh no! Did you get COVID?
I did not. I did one of those at-home tests. My neighbors that were across the street, they're this very nice older couple. They're like, "Here's an extra test we have." I think they were curious. They wanted to know if they needed to stay away or not. But no, the whole family got sick. It wasn't COVID. I heard you got it.
I got it. Yeah, I got it in Thunder Bay. So if Jacob had gotten to Thunder Bay, we would have given him COVID too.
Right.
By the way, all the people watching, there is a link on the pins to the top, which you can click on. All I ask is you turn your video on, and you can join the discussion. We have 12 people watching. This is like one of the most popular streams I've ever had.
So, Paul, one of the first interactions I had with you, I have 2 YouTube channels, but I had my son. Like, he was like 2 years old. So it must have been over 4 years ago. And I remember you said your wife really enjoyed having the kid in the video.
Yeah. we had so if you watch the Freddie and Paul show, oh, here's Sam. I think Sam got in my video today.
I haven't watched the video.
Yeah, twice, 2 of your videos. So no, actually, my wife says her absolute favorite video of mine is the dance segment at the end of the Freddie and Paul show from this week. And I have to admit, that is one of the most joyful, fun things I have ever put on YouTube is Freddie and Charles J dancing. So
I have to check that out.
If you didn't catch the Freddie and Paul show, the first part of the Freddie and Paul show rolls out per normal. But then Freddie and Charles want to do some dancing, and so I recorded it for them, and then they did a second take. So I recorded that too, and I recorded that for me, and it's just fun. They're just having a good time, and Nancy was upset because, Nancy thought that the show lost its missionary standard that she usually brings to the show, and I said, Nancy, you'll have to come back and make it better then. So.
That's fine.
Michael asks, are the Friday Q&As coming back?
Yeah, they should come back. They might, maybe, I don't know about this week, maybe this week. Rick hasn't asked me. I'll have to check with Rick. But so basically the plan was I paused just a ton of stuff during July, August, and September because of all the traveling I was doing. And now we just had our regional classes meeting on Tuesday. And so really next week, things should start getting back to normal. So we should be able to do some Friday Q&As again then.
That's good. I feel like the Friday Q&As provide a level of coherence and purpose that's been missed.
Yeah. So actually, I thought of Jacob today because someone asked me about the protest portion of the Peterson's a Peterson recent video where he announced some new tickets. And so I actually thought of maybe doing a little video about that today. So we'll see. If I do, it'll come out tomorrow. Let's see. Today's Thursday. It'll be tomorrow morning.
People are very, very excited that you're here. Well.
Have you been, Sam?
I've been busy. Okay, fine. 2 of my kids have been sick the past week. Kind of all 3 of them. I have a new job and a new baby, so my attention's been more split and divided than usual.
Yeah.
But so I haven't been investing in my channel quite as much as normal, but still, I've got an interview with a Danish New Testament scholar tomorrow morning. Wow. So that should be pretty fun. But that's like the first academic interview I've done since the new job and the new baby.
Okay. How old's the new baby now?
The new baby was born, let's see here, 3 months ago. 3 months ago.
June, right?
What?
Your wife was pregnant in June when we were out there.
That was correct. Yes. The last time you saw me, I was a father of 2, but I am a father of 3 now. Baby was born 5th of July. It was kind of, so the 4th of July, if you remember, there was the shooting in Highland Park, Illinois, which is, I won't dox myself too badly, but very near me. And my wife woke up the 4th of July saying like, hey, I think this is it. I think baby's coming. So, rumblings are happening. Birth pangs upon the pregnant woman were happening, but then it stopped. And so then we went to our local 4th of July parade. And then all of a sudden in the middle of it, the police told everyone to go home. And we're like, what's going on? And like people start checking their phones and it's like, oh, neighboring community 4th of July parade mass shooting. And at this point, everyone kind of knows what that means, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then later that night, my wife's like, no, it's really, really happening. And so we went to the hospital. Baby was born the morning of the 5th.
Congratulations.
Well, thanks. Baby's healthy and fine, though.
Good.
3 months old, right?
Yeah.
5th of July, it's October 6th. So yeah, 3 months and a day. But babies are always hard. Although I feel like this baby was easier than usual. And I don't know if we got an easier one the 3rd time around or if we're just better at it or both. But
yeah, well, there are easier and harder babies, that's for sure. Freddie's calling me.
It's crazy how each baby has their own personality, even in the womb. I didn't expect that before I became a father.
Yeah, they're all different, and they get more and more different the older they get. So, but it's pretty cool.
How many do you have, Paul?
5.
I don't think I want to do 5. I have 3. So now I have the same amount as Sam.
Well, congrats.
3 is seen as reasonable. You get to have 5, and people start looking at you like they wonder if you're Mormon or Catholic or something.
Right. Yes.
Or maybe a quiverful Reformed community.
When my wife goes grocery shopping with all 3 kids, right, and she's like wearing one on the front, one on the back, and one's walking, she'll get some comments. Some are good, some are that sort of passive aggressive, why do you have so many kids comments.
I have zero regret at this stage having had 5. Because
at this stage
it's a lot when they're little. I
Empty
mean,
nester.
It impacts every area of life. And when they get into college, it's really expensive. But now that we've just got one in his last year of college, just seeing the relationships they have with each other. I also have zero regrets having homeschooled, because just in terms of their relationships with each other, that really gave them a bond that is really solid and deep. And
Paul, how many of your kids lived in the Dominican Republic?
2.
2 oldest?
Yep.
The 2 oldest had some amount of time. Were any of them born in the Dominican Republic, or would you go back stateside for birth?
My oldest was.
So your wife's first birth was in the Dominican Republic. God bless her.
She's a beast. I mean, my wife's a tough woman.
Khalifa's one of 16.
Yeah. That's a big family. Hey!
Dang. All right. So now that Chad and Jacob and Paul are here, is everybody getting along, or are we still fighting?
I fucking hate all you guys.
Which is why you showed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's all is well.
I love Paul, and yesterday was the Day of Atonement, so I hold no grudges, but I'm still not coming back to the POS.
That's one mentor.
What if we baked you a cake, Jacob?
That's not why I left, and that's not why I would come back. And from what I hear, it's been becoming more and more of a Christian server anyway. So
it's just the shape of history, Jacob.
Look, Some of us stand athwart history and say that way, and others of us don't. I have a very definite vision of what the world should be like.
That's clear.
I thought that the conversation between Pajot and who was the other guy, the other professor at Thunder Bay,
Richard Mandrell.
I thought that conversation was fascinating because he is obviously a very well-informed person and knows a lot of stuff about a lot of things, but he was also like, WTF are you guys saying?
Yeah.
Right? And it was interesting hearing Pajot go through the effort at translation or catching up or whatever exactly you called it. And it reminds me of how, like, what so a lot of the people on the server or at meetups or what have you had maybe some amount of exposure to first wave Peterson stuff and have been paying some amount of attention to various parts of this whole shenanigans since then. But what would it take for someone who just stumbled upon this stuff now to belong, to join, to feel caught up, to feel like they're participating, etc.?
Yep.
And if it's that hard for some amount of a professor who studies consciousness or something thereabouts to get caught up, how much for the average Joe? And so that was the thought that I was having.
This is the reason I tried to have Karen on my channel. Karen Wong brings things down to a understandable common level. And I don't get to watch all of her content because we put out way too much content in this corner. Well, I can't say too much content, but we put out
You're
so
the
much
chief
content.
of sinners in that regard, Jacob. But
and you know what? This is why I've started having more just chatting streams and not having. This is one of the reasons I'm having more just chatting streams and not actually putting out as much content. Because exactly that. I think if we are going to, we need to be having more conversations. Yeah. Stephen, do I know you? Is this your first time here? Watching Jacob and PVK together makes me think that the tension between the finite Judaism and the transcendent Christianity should not be resolved for the sake of humanity. I think you have it backwards. We're the ones who believe in an infinite God, and you're the ones who believe in an embodied God.
I knew Jacob was going to take that.
Now, this whole
I beg to differ, but I'll shut up for now.
This whole newcomer conversation. I'm not going to dox them, but there's two separate people, both of whom have a lot of experience and or access, that are actually paying a lot of attention to this problem and want to do something significant to address it. And we'll see if something comes of that.
What'd you high status newcomers?
They're not newcomers. They've been following along, but they're not active on the Discord server. One of them has been on my channel. But there's another one who's been behind the scenes of a lot of things. And they both have come to me with this very same thing, and they've gone to Pajot and Vervaeke, and Pajot and Vervaeke also, well, one of them, Pajot and Vervaeke, know quite well. And so this concern, and I don't know how much of the Thunder Bay talks you've seen. I'm just sort of rolling them out slowly. There's more on the consciousness.
I bet if I had to guess, a cardiologist in a mountainous state might be one of them.
No, it's not Dr. Jim.
All right.
But this is an area. Concern isn't quite the right word, but it's an area of interest and some activity. And so,
is it a converted Orthodox priest?
What's that?
Is it a converted Orthodox priest?
No.
Okay.
No. It's probably not someone you guys have heard of. But this is someone that one of these two reached out to me and has been in conversation with myself and Vervaeke and Jordan and Jonathan for a few years now. And he's got some real interest in doing something, but he's sort of lurking, staying behind the scenes, waiting until he thinks the timing is right and the idea is right. So, but you really put yourself, that's really something that you put your finger on, Sam. So
we talked about that at our last Chicago meetup. Is our numbers are fine and healthy at our local meetup estuary, but it's becoming more and more returners and not as many newcomers. And we were wondering, what would we even do with like a total newcomer, right?
Yeah.
And is our culture conducive to welcoming and integrating such a person? And the answer was, it would be a challenge, and it's not great at that, really.
So if you've watched the larger, when they had the four of us on stage plus Catherine, I talked about that a bit. But no, that's a concern. And actually, so Catherine inviting Richard Mandrell to the Thunder Bay, when she did it, everybody there's kind of like, how's this going to go? Why is he here? But afterwards, I said, actually, it was genius, because there were about a dozen people at the conference who came knowing none of us, maybe knowing Mandrell, but knowing none of the rest of us. Like in one of the breakout groups, I had one dude sit next to me, says, I don't know who you are. I don't know who this Peugeot guy is. I don't know who this Vervaeke guy is. And those are the kind of people that are fun to have in the room, because they're going to tell you exactly what they think. You don't have any of the status crap going on or any of that kind of thing. And so having Mandrell in the conversation, I think, was important. And as we're looking at future events where we're probably going to have Peugeot and Vervaeke and myself, I think having the practice of bringing someone in from the outside who knows very little is really important. And Richard was only committed to Friday and Saturday, but he came and stayed through most of Sunday.
Well, I have a suggestion.
Bishop
Barron could be a great fourth horseman who is also removed enough that he doesn't necessarily talk all your lingo.
Who?
And Bishop Barron?
Oh, yeah. But Bishop Barron, yeah. But he's someone that's already got high status.
But Bishop Barron was also an example of this problem when in the Four Horsemen video, he was a little bit like, wait a minute, you guys, you three of you can talk in a way that I'm not fully in on.
Yep.
And he noticed that, and credit to him for kind of trying to adjust and figure that out.
Yep.
But it was also a symptom of this when and Bishop Barron, it's like, for heaven's sakes, if Bishop Barron doesn't understand what we're saying, and who knows how much that guy's read and, understood, right? Anyway, go ahead.
Go ahead, Chad.
So I kind of like, it's kind of like watching, I mean, even though like Lex Friedman is like kind of an intelligent dude, I think he still speaks some of the dumb language that I would speak. And so he's kind of like this. I've noticed this in some of the other conversations that he's been having. Like, I really liked the one he did with Bishop Barron. I liked, and that was kind of like between that one and then the one that, the Shia LaBeouf one that they had, there was a lot of, you got to see, I think, a little more of the personal Bishop Barron come out, kind of like somebody who is, not using, I mean, even though he's using some of the Latin and stuff, it was like, still, for me, I could follow along. I don't know.
Well, Lex Friedman, I mean, he only has a PhD from MIT and works in artificial intelligence.
He doesn't just have a PhD, he's an assistant professor or something at MIT, right?
I think he was a postgraduate researcher, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
okay, so we can have Lex for one of these things.
But Lex Friedman is becoming
high status.
Well, Lex Friedman is becoming, it was interesting. He was kind of IDW adjacent, right? And kind of a low status IDW adjacent guy. But his podcast has taken up a lot of the slack that other people's have left behind.
Yeah.
And he's sort of moving in our corner adjacent with,
Yeah.
you know, the Levin biologist guy and Bishop Aaron and Vervaeke. Lord knows he'll have Peugeot on
thinking
to
about that
confuse
this
his
morning.
audience in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, wait till I'm on.
Peter Rollins.
I was thinking he's got to be watching these videos. There's no way that he's not paying attention to some of the stuff that, like, I'm almost probably guessing he's even seen some Vanderklay videos.
Click away. Too long.
Well, then, Paul, what do you think about the idea of maybe making like exploring a, like, not a year-end review, but something like, you know, like a up to this point review, if you had to condense it into some simple language for, you know, a newcomer.
It's hard for us inside of it to do it. It's best done through the eyes of someone coming in from the outside, because we have lost our capacity for outsider relevance realization because we've been in too long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they help us see some blind spots, which is really good.
But we're in enough where we have something that other people notice that we have and want it. It's part of it. So the insularity has, you know, enabled something to come about. What exactly it is, I'm not sure I could describe in any way. But people notice that we have something that other people don't have and want.
Yep.
So that is also because of the insularity and the self-referential whateverness.
Well, I think one of the main things that, if you want to say something we have that others don't, would be the randos conversations that Paul's had. I think that is kind of that's really been probably the big worm on the hook for a lot of us, because it gives us a sense of belonging and all this stuff. It's really kind of like as close as you could probably get to fostering something like a relationship with people in the real. And so that's exciting for people. I mean, that was really exciting for me. So
people want to be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And figuring out how to scale that is, you know, it's a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And also ecumenical. No, Laura's right. And I really, Laura, when are you going to let me repost those videos, huh? Those were great conversations. But there's a good reason I mean, that's the struggle. There's a good reason not to have them up there. And, but for me, again, I mean, I had 4 hours in a car with Jacob. I had 12 hours in a car with Luke. And I'm surprised he didn't get COVID from me. You know, and so I'm really excited about the in-person things that we're doing now, more of those, because you just build, you just know people so much more in person than you can, you know, in this video space.
Okay, Paul, when are we going to talk about the elephant or not?
Is there an elephant? I was going to make a video. The video I'm going to make today, I'm tempted to make about this. So if you want to talk about this, we can talk about this.
I do want to talk about this.
All right.
Where to start, though?
Be brief. I don't have all day.
Yeah,
we all feel different parts of the elephant, right? But, you know, I think the elephant's kind of like a truck.
So I will say this. When you wrote to me, and I hope you don't mind me quoting what you wrote to me, but I'm going to quote what you wrote to me, if I can find it. Where is it?
I regret what I wrote to you.
Okay.
I regret that comment. I didn't know how to respond to you, and I at that point I wasn't quite aware enough of everything that was going on, And so one of my rules is don't write comments like that, and I broke my rule, and I pay for it.
Oh, hold on. No. I'm not talking about the comments on the YouTube. I'm talking
okay.
about what you sent on Discord.
Oh, okay.
So I'll tell you the part which I found the funniest. The only PVK show is my channel, not BOM, not even Estuary, which I'm far closer to.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna read the rest. But I found that hilarious, and I am going to keep this and stop you from eating your cake and having it too. You already ate your cake. You're not going to get to have it. So, Estuary, at BOM, everything else. Okay. You're not running it, Paul.
I'm not.
I think you're crazy, but I think you're ultimately going to end up running them. But I'm going to make you eat those words, or you're. No, you can't have your cake and eat it too, Paul. You can't have your cake and eat it too.
I'm not exactly sure how to apply that metaphor, because it's clearly clear to you, but it's not clear to me.
You don't run it. When it's good for you, when you feel comfortable, you're like, it's not me. I don't run it. Other people run it. I'm just my show, just my channel. And then you also then run things. And what's even worse is you give people the impression that you run things. And people depend on you running things.
Well, now that last pit, that's on them.
No.
Yes.
Promissory estoppel is in the civil law.
Promissory estoppel? What did you say?
Estoppel.
Oh, I thought some new group that arose, and then we have to deal with a promissory Gestapo.
No, promissory estoppel is in the secular law. It's part of our civil law. If you give the impression that you run something, you are legally liable.
Yeah, but from my point of view, it doesn't. I would have never suspected that Paul's ran anything, because he said repeatedly that he doesn't.
That's not good enough.
I would really love to stick around, guys, but I got to get ready to go because I got to run this Zoom portion of the AA meeting. So yay!
All right, Chad.
Thank you, guys. I
Good
really
to see you,
and I'll see you around.
All right.
I highly recommend people look up promissory estoppel, and this was actually what I sued Hasbro over.
You sued a toy company?
Hasbro was in the top 500 before I sued them.
You brought down a toy company? And the children are lamenting. Boy, Jacob.
I estimate it cost them about $1 million, my lawsuit.
And what did you get out of it?
I got my car.
Boy.
Although,
you've ridden in my car.
So to defend Jacob's muddled analogies a little bit, I think part of what the German elephant situation did bring up is what is the boundary between bridges of meaning and not bridges of meaning. And we do, but part of what is great is that there is no barriers to entry, right? Jacob, you kind of have to rise to prominence through your own sort of efforts, but there's no one stopping you except your own inability or ability to draw an audience and attention to yourself, right? You can make your own channel, and you can invite people on your channel, and people can clip you and that sort of thing, right? And no one's stopping you, etc., unless you run afoul of the YouTube community guideline strikes or what have you. But part of the question is Chad's channel and the content on it attributable to the Bridges of Meaning brand in such a way that it should affect whether or not a venue decides to host one of our events? That was a central question, basically, to the German Elephant. And it is a decent question that I don't totally know the answer to myself.
No, neither do I. Who came up with Bridges of Meaning, the name?
Joey.
It's not me.
Right, but Jacob's point of
So you're gonna have your
people
Q&A
are
on
led.
my Discord server this Friday, right?
I could.
You are more than welcome to.
And we've got Gavin here. So one of the things when everybody was whining to me about being exiles, I said start an exile server. I'll come and do a Q&A there.
I don't know how to attract people.
I have at least 4 people who were kicked off of. Well, some of them left, but yeah, I still have several people who were kicked off of thing. Not that I actually disagreed with Joey ran that server in ways we did not deserve to have somebody like Joey spending the type of time he did. Like, I have incredible gratitude for Joey, and I do not blame anybody for
and
not.
It's amazing he never banned you.
No, I don't think that's amazing at all. I think he. No. See, that's the thing. No, I don't think he was ever even close to banning me, as far as I know.
I think that you built yourself up enough over enough period of time that you became uncancelable. But I bet early on. Anyway. I shouldn't speak to this because theoretically I could search a chat thing to see if that were true or not. So I'll just say.
Rick says.
Rick has a way with
because I was helping you make your point. Because the fact that I knew that says something to the fact that I do have some closeness to people who are running that. When Chad started his channel, he called it Bridges of Meaning. Joey.
No. Okay, so Chad has corrected this several times. I think Joey may have gotten this confused, but Chad has said several times it was always called BOM Hub. Joey never asked him to change anything. I think Joey may have confused different channels, but
that's what Joey told me.
Yeah, I heard that Joey said it, and that's why I spoke to Chad directly about it. But Chad has corrected this several times. Oh. Yeah.
So it shows you how disconnected I am.
Well, look, and honestly, like Joey. Not keeping exact files of how things were done. Like, look, this is part of the Protestant nature. It's funny. I talked to Father Eric about this stuff. Not much. I'm like, Father Eric, what do you have to say about this? He said nothing. I'm like,
he's a wise man.
But you're the one who's supposed to stop us from being so Protestant. And his response was, Discord is Protestant. And he's absolutely right. We are very, very Protestant, and I'm probably most Protestant of them all.
Keep that quote in your back pocket for some other time.
I've been saying this for a while.
And you want me to be less Protestant.
Look, I'm not gonna make you less Protestant. You're going to be who you are. And I realized that before, and I realize that now. The fact is, yes, we have Prophet Zacharias meme You're gonna have to post it to my
So
server.
Jacob, who's in charge of Antifa?
So did I tell you about Facebook banning my Antifa page?
Is this how you spent your $1 million from Hasbro?
First of all, why would you have one on Facebook? And then, yes, I would imagine it got banned. But
because Antifa kept on saying, "Oh, we're not an organization. We're not thing. So I started Donald Trump Antifa, and I posted. I would post on behalf of Antifa, be anti-fascist, vote Trump. Because I do not believe in letting.
You're worried about people coming after me.
Well,
no. See, this is the thing. People. Okay, I have had to correct so many people about this, and
wonder why.
I'm a little surprised I have to correct you. The person who made the complaints did not have problems with Chad, did not have problems with Burn Powers. They had problems with you, and they were attacking your flock in order to attack you.
What person?
Whoever put in the complaints.
This is a good question. Is who exactly? So Jacob and I have had some lovingly charged messages about this in the name of brotherhood and whatever that Hebrew word for direct, blunt speech is. But
I think it's a Dutch word.
I could.
Is it Dutch word?
First of all, Bad Stats may have been behind this.
Who?
It's very easy for Bad Stats to have been behind this, but even if it wasn't him, whoever it was did not bump on Chad's channel and spend how many hours going through Burn? How long is Burn's content?
Well, like Jacob, to the best that I understand it, is that there was some resident Antifa adjacent people at the German venue who probably do this to every speaker that gets hosted at this venue to do their homework or due diligence. And this is how they gain status within their community, is noticing that someone left some non-Antifa approved comment. And so therefore they're going to try and cancel this person and raise their status within this German community. And they're mostly probably 20-something do nothing.
And this is why I started.
They complained about Burn, and they complained about Chad, and they had no complaints about me. That's the record.
Because they knew better.
This
is why.
Jacob, you don't know that, though. Jacob, you don't know that.
And I started talking about the Holocaust. Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
This much I know.
No, you don't.
We're not being a confessing church.
Well, how do you know this? You've given me no evidence. I hate to sound like a celebrity atheist, but there's not a lot of evidence you've given me.
And I didn't think I would need to give evidence to somebody who's been following Jordan Peterson to see that what's been going on for the past over 20 years is that people have been using, yes, I can't believe I have to make this argument with this shirt on.
But Jacob,
the Kathy Newman interview.
Jacob, sometimes it's a wolf and sometimes it's, a tiny little rogue coyote that isn't part of any pack that you don't need to worry about.
And you know what? I don't make Holocaust allusions lightly, Sam.
I know you don't, but I think that you could be subjectively.
You think I'm being controversial? You think Jordan Peterson, when he talks about Chairman Mao, he's when he compares these protesters to Chairman Mao, he's just being silly.
So, Jake, all right.
I just wanted to point out, like, when you start talking about the propositional, you can get really angry. It's interesting to me to talk about, like, the participatory, like, what if this happens again, or and that gets to questions about what you were discussing earlier. So But yeah, I mean, you can keep trying to argue about what's propositionally true. I mean, some people will find that entertaining, but I just wanted to kind of provide just a little bit of a meta story over on top of what's happening.
So were these random people who have a lot of time on their hands, who
Doesn't
might
matter.
even be Antifa rejects, following central commands, or were they behaving in the spirit of something that's a problem but don't really have
Doesn't
any
matter.
actual? That's a big
Doesn't matter.
distinction. It's a big
No,
distinction.
it is a completely irrelevant distinction. I don't care. I want a confessing church because I want a confessing church because I see us. I think I said to Yosef 1928. We're holding it 1928, and I'm not. Antifa existed in Nazi Germany. Did you know that?
I had no idea.
Antifa existed in before in the Weimar Republic, and we are replaying what happened in the Weimar Republic. The censorship is exactly what happened to Goebbels. Exactly what happened to Goebbels. The censorship helped fascists come into power. We're not playing a game here. This, if you know your Holocaust history, yes, we are. For a good 6 years, I have been seeing a slow motion train wreck that I can't just sit there and watch. And that's why I joined this community. I want a confessing church, and we don't have a confessing church.
No, we don't. I have a confessing church that I'm a minister of, but Bridges of Meaning is not a confessing church. Estuary is not a confessing church. I've been very clear on all of that.
By confessing church, I mean the exact movement that Karl Barth and Bonhoeffer, Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
You mean like the Barton Declaration?
Yes, they were called the Confessing Church.
Yeah.
And they stood up to the Nazis, and that's why I keep on bringing up Mitbrennen der Sorge, which is the Catholic encyclical which the Pope issued in 1937.
Which I have no idea of anything about.
So,
okay,
Jacob, this is the point that I made to you earlier. Okay, so this was our first brush up against an enemy of some kind. I think you way overstate what that enemy is, but we can either be forever tarnished and forever not the thing that you think we are, because round 1 or round 0.1 didn't go the way that you think it should have, or we could be the sort of community that keeps talking about it, that tries to improve, that tries to learn lessons. I do think the lesson of what it, Jacob, I do think that part of it is that we do need to have a better conversation around what the definition of BOM is, what the definition of estuary is, what is attributable to it and what isn't, and that the incident around Chad, raised that question in a way. But I think that the idea that we had our moment to stand up and assassinate Hitler the way Dietrich Bonhoeffer wanted to, and we failed.
I never said that.
Well,
you're creating a very false situation here. First of all, I am still
so you're allowed to make Holocaust allusions, but I'm not? Or how does this work? I don't know when we get to make Holocaust allusions or not.
I'm talking about 1928, and you're talking about 1944.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Wrong year.
Wrong place in where we are in history. History is repeating itself, and I don't want to see a repeat of the Holocaust. Never again means something to me.
I don't think any of us, Jacob, doubt your heart.
We're supposed to be chatting.
That's okay. This is the best moment of the time. I mean, part of, okay, to the degree that I have any influence over bridges of meaning, I want that influence to have something that we care for each other, at least at a level that's appropriate for, what we can do
I
on a
can't see the future, Luke. That's 100% true, and I don't believe anybody can see the future. That's why I don't like seeing the past repeat itself, and it is. I can see the past, as can Jordan Peterson. So a lot of people in our community, when they see Jordan Peterson's Kathy Newman interview, and Kathy Newman says, "Aren't you being like just controversial when you talk about Mao?" When you and he says, "No, I'm not." That's why I am here, because I see what Jordan Peterson sees.
Yeah, I think Jacob, you basically see that there's postmodernists who have infiltrated the education system for decades and has.
I see censorship, Gavin.
Okay.
Censorship is, if you know anything about the history of the Holocaust, you know that Joseph Goebbels was censored. He was censored, and he used that censorship in order to get into power. Yet, everybody who's for censorship keeps on saying, "Would you want Joseph Goebbels to be censored?" As if anybody who knows that history doesn't know Joseph Goebbels was actually, Streicher went to jail. Der Stürmer was confiscated. So when people start bringing up the Holocaust as a good reason for censorship, either I mean, you don't get the answer exactly wrong. You don't get the answer exactly wrong unless you know what the answer is.
All right, but Jacob, I don't think that anyone is denying some of the larger trends that you're pointing to. Maybe, all right, sorry, that was too strong of a statement. I think most of us would be in some general agreement with some troubling trends around censorship and the brokenness of the left and the crumbling and, decapitation of institutions, etc. And even seeing connections between that and 1920s Germany is a conversation that's worth having. But it's also like you're trying to say, because of that, everything I did was right and everything I said was right and everything you guys who disagreed with me is wrong.
No, I have never.
Now I'll say something, Jacob, that I think a good point that you are making that I see. I mean, what happened in Germany was a very small thing that changed very little. And I think Sam is right. And I think you're right that what it should do is have us do a little bit of thinking about how we are going to respond to opposition in the future. Because I have seen, since this summer, just in various interaction on Twitter, there have been a few more accounts that have sort of, had their little go at me in their own little way. These have been very small accounts, and they've done it in a certain way. And this is part of the reason why, when I get towards this time in the day, I've got a few hours. I think, okay, if I'm going to make a video for tomorrow, maybe it'll be about something like this. Actually, I was thinking about this topic because I think you are right that there will be attempts at silencing, canceling, altering, pulling punches. There will be attempts to get me, probably more so others who have higher status. And I think we need to think carefully about how to respond to the various ways in which groups and individuals are going to try to, and what are they attempting to do? They might be attempt to have us alter our language, might be an attempt to have us change positions on things, might be an attempt to
not have us be able to organize and hold events.
So what I'll tell you, and what I've said I've done several streams on this. What we did is precisely what they wanted. If we had done anything other than what they had expected, it would have blown up in their face. Because if we had called their bluff,
Jacob, I still think you're using they in an agentival sense that is inappropriate to this particular incident, and you are overplaying kind of your hand. But there is still the point that Paul was just trying to make. And the point that you're trying to make, Jacob, is that when people go after a thing, they try and probe for weakness and start at the weakest points. And maybe that's going after people like Chad and Byrne before they go after PVK himself. And I think that you're right about that, but that doesn't mean that the thing that happened in Germany was a they that is connected to the them that you're worried about.
You know what? It doesn't even matter. Because it may be an agregor. Call it an agregor. I don't care. Our response was the normie response to these tactics that have been going on for years. And this is the one community I trusted not to respond like normies.
That's what you wanted. You wanted the community to respond.
You know what?
In a different way.
Germany, for me, it was just a little bit too symbolic, especially with that picture you put out. And you know what? When I talked to Job,
What picture?
He talked to the picture of the Vanderclays in the synagogue.
What about that? You think they're going after me because of my Jewish heritage?
No. I actually don't think that the Jews are the people that they're gunning after. I don't think that, and I've said this to several people, I don't think they're looking to hit at Jews necessarily. It doesn't even matter. The fact is, we're having this, call it a Rene Girard scapegoating mechanism, madness of crowds, mobbing, call it whatever you want. But our society is going crazy. There is a feedback loop that is scapegoating people, and we need to stop it. I don't think Jordan Peterson was being crazy when he compared those activists to Chairman Mao.
No, I don't think he was crazy either, but that's a very different level than what happened around the German festival. But I see you're saying it's different in size, but it's similar in kind. That's what I hear you saying.
He was just a professor. Who was he for them to be protesting? You have a lot more say than the protests when Jordan Peterson started.
I have a lot more say?
How large was Jordan Peterson when he first made his the suspenders video?
Nearly 100,000 subscribers, mostly because people enjoyed watching his academic lectures. But anyway, I don't mean to fact check the point that you're trying to make.
Fine, but it's a lot smaller than he is now.
Yeah.
And they don't go after the big people. That's the funny part. Like,
they're going after Jordan. They've been after Jordan in a lot of different ways.
And they go after Trump for precisely the same reason. There is
comes down to it. No, the low-level violence is so much deeper. read Madness of Crowds by Douglas Murray. Look into James Lindsay. Look.
But Jacob, we don't disagree with you on some of that stuff, and we have read some of those books, and we do listen to some of those people. So,
yes,
I think,
which is why
which is why it seems like you're miscommunicating, and I'm a little bit confused exactly what you're.
That's possible. I'm bad at.
If we can look at patterns and microcosms, I'm wondering if Paul has had similar experiences with people who would want to advocate for some kind of censorship. Is there a way to respond that's appropriate when people are advocating for censorship? And have you experienced anything like that in the past?
So in the church community, a lot of these kinds of dynamics are very present. The politics can be different. I mean, it can be about policy in church, but these I'll call them a la David Letterman, stupid human tricks. These things tend to stay sort of the same. And even as leadership in a small church, you'll see lots of different games being played like this. And, things are different now with social media, and it's a little different for me now because I have a platform that's a little separate from the church. But when I see a lot of people doing like what they do on Twitter and what they say, it reminds me a lot of little church fights. And so
relational aggression, which men tend to be blind to and women tend to see much better.
Well, it certainly is relational aggression in some ways, but then you have to ask yourself, okay, how do I respond to it? And how and in what way? And sometimes the best response is no response, because sometimes responding, especially if your platform is larger, I see all the time people respond to things, and all they do is they give their enemies more power and more visibility. And that way their enemy actually leverages a platform, and you give the enemy a platform they don't have.
And Jacob, I also think you underestimate how much of the situation was resolved in Germany by personal relationships that people had with organizers of the event.
What I said from the very beginning was the proper response to those complaints was, people are already traveling. We're not going to respond to this. It's too close to the actual thing. But what we actually did was apologize, which made the people who run the center be like, uh-oh, there's smoke here, and pull out.
But this is where the whole ownership thing is, because I didn't have, by the time that those who were organizing the German event had actually dealt with this, I hadn't heard anything about any of it.
Okay.
And I had no idea about any of this until fairly late in the game.
Okay. So I'm very glad to hear.
Let me talk about the church world. Now, I work in a church that has a council. And so when there are fights like that in an organized church, we, meaning the council, actually discuss things, and there is a we there. And that wasn't the case in any of this.
Which is a problem.
And well, Jacob, I actually think you also underestimate the ability of decentralization to beat centralization. And you underestimate the tactics of Protestantism, or I could just say diffuse, non-centralized organization, to be the real main antidote to the thing that you're actually worried about. And that if you try and centralize and organize it too much, it makes it easier to attack, and it makes it easier to corrupt and easier to besmirch or what have you. Whereas if it is more decentralized, and what Paul does is kind of connected, but also loosely connected from whatever the heck I say on my channel, right? Because no one's accusing Paul of, being a promoter of heretics or something like that, which maybe some people are, but but part of the reason why Paul can clip my video is like, Paul clipping my video isn't like, some ringing endorsement of every theological opinion I have. And part of that is because there is a diffuseness and a decentralization that is a strength that you're underappreciating.
please like and subscribe, people. This may be the largest. Video I ever did.
Thumbs up.
Grim Grizz has a Patreon.
Hey, I
Navigating Patterns is Martha Faber's channel name.
Okay.
Look.
I should land this at the top of the hour. So
Okay. There's any number of things we could have done.
Again with the we.
Yes. Okay. Yes, because we're a community, Paul.
But this German festival was not a function of the we.
Yes, it was.
But you didn't organize it.
I didn't, and I'm not even criticizing the people who did.
No, that's exactly who you're criticizing. Because
No,
they're
no,
the group
no.
that responded.
No, that's the thing. I am actually not criticizing the two people I'm not going to even name.
Well, they certainly feel criticized.
I know that, and I'm sorry, but it's certainly not their fault.
So the attacker is becoming so nebulous that it's weird to even talk about who the who is, and the defender is becoming so nebulous that it's even hard to define who that who is.
I want us to be a corporate community.
That's actually a strategy in companies is to, you don't criticize the person, you criticize the behavior. You try to learn. All right.
The behavior, look, when it comes down to it, what made me leave the server the second time was nobody wanted to discuss it. And it was like, okay.
What made you tear up your membership card to an organization that doesn't have membership cards?
I didn't tear it up. I certainly did not tear it up.
And yet we're having this conversation here.
Yes, we are. Yes, and Paul, notice somebody has been a sort of instigator. Somebody has been in making conversations happen as if he's part of a community.
And I think you are still part, because part of the difficulty that one of the things that I can see by virtue of sort of where I am in this network, in this community. Now that community word gets really stretched because we have all these communities around, is I see there's people who hang out on the Discord. There's people who went to the German festival. There's people who went to Thunder Bay. There's people who went to the Netherlands event. There's people who went to the Ireland event. There's people who went to various estuary meetups in the UK. There's the number of people who feel themselves as part of this, who actually participate in the Bridges of Meaning Discord, is a minority. There are many other people who, well, they might watch a little Sam. Others have never seen any Karen. They might not have even watched Vervaeke. And when you look at, there's the bigger subset are people who watch Peugeot and Vervaeke because their channels are larger than who watch mine. I mean, it's sort of this strange little network that goes way beyond any of us. And Bridges
and has no clear definitions of starting and stopping.
Right.
Well, that's why
Bridges of Meaning is sort of one little node that has a little bit more definition than a lot of the other things.
This is why I've been plugging this little corner.com, which is the search engine of our channels, which Ryan Lewis helped create.
It's a great tool.
And which is why I tried with Post-Platonic to try to get us a little bit more corporate, and why we need to stop being so damn Protestant.
Well,
once upon a time, I tried to push Paul to be a little bit more corporate. Me and Hank did, and he more or less kind of said no politely, and I think that he was born out to be right. So I will say
Father Eric, you're a bit late. We already quoted you.
He's taller in person than he is on
we
the
already quoted you. And
So-
Father Eric, if you were to start a server, I would join it.
He tried to join John MacArthur's church after all.
Hey, I have been accused many times of being a Catholic apologist, and I do not apologize for that.
Well, I am glad we had this conversation, Jacob. I'm glad we had it on your channel. And even if you're not participating in the Discord community, I still feel you as part of whatever this nebulous network we have is, and you're a very important part of it.
You can check out, but you can never leave.
No, look, if the Discord is officially not Paul Vanderklay, and I'm not going to let you have your cake and eat it with that either.
I'm looking for see if I have any cake around here.
When it comes down to it, if the Discord is officially not Paul Vanderklay, okay, it's officially not Paul Vanderklay. It's also not Joey Antonassi. So like,
but neither is. But this is where you're right with the Protestant. Neither is Living Stones. Living Stones is not officially Paul Vanderklay. I wonder if John MacArthur's church is officially John MacArthur. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. And
I'm pretty sure it is.
I've been telling Sam over and over again, and he keeps on telling me you underestimate Jesus's driving skills. Is Jesus take the wheel is not a plan.
Hey, did the Palestinian People's Liberation Front win, or did Jesus win? The Judean Liberation Front. What's that from? Life of Brian?
I really want to talk to you, Sam. Yeah. Once we're rid of this bald guy, I really want to talk to you about MMT. It's one of the.
Is that a psychedelic drug, or is that what is MMT?
It's one of the Dead Sea Scrolls. I just read it on Sunday, and whoa, I really need to talk to you about that.
All right. Well, you'll be rid of the bald guy now, but I'm delighted. I'm delighted. I saw that you were live streaming, and I'm delighted I jumped on. And
I am too.
And so, anyway, I'm happy to be here. Like and subscribe. Oh, whatever this thing is that we have going, it is a delight, and it is a delight because of you people. So that's how I feel.
Ethan says bye, Paul.
All right, it's great to see Ethan. I gotta get out. Let's see. Okay, leave studio. I see the little button.
Leave studio. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Take care, guys.
Bye.
I'm gonna head out as well, guys.
Later. Do you have to go, Sam? If you have to go,
I'll give you a couple more minutes.
So MMT, it stands for Mikitzat Maaseh HaTorah. Yeah, it's in Hebrew. I'm sorry. That's why everybody is referring to it as MMT. Have I told you about Strugnell before? He was the guy who was in charge of the Dead Sea Scrolls for many, many years. And what happened was he was having an interview with Haaretz, which is an Israeli newspaper, and he went on an anti-Semitic tirade, which made everybody blow up at him, and he ended up quitting his job and checking into rehab, and he basically lost his mind. And when I read MMT on Sunday, it was like, okay, I can see why a Christian would completely lose his mind and turn to drink.
Okay. What's your punchline? I'm trying to Google this thing. It's a letter sent from the leaders of Qumran to the priestly establishment in Jerusalem, presumably the Sadducees or something. And that's about as far as I've gotten.
So the punchline is that the environment which we the environment in which Second Temple Judaism existed is very, very different from anything we thought. The Sadducees and the Essenes and everybody seems to have been far, far more in line with Pharisaic Judaism than anybody ever thought. And it's, I think James Tabor, basically his takeaway has been that the book of Acts is just obviously bad, and a lot of people are throwing the Gospel of Luke into that as well. And
that is not a new critique, but like so I like, first off, I will say that I think that Christian scholarship has improved leaps and bounds over the 20th century. Part of that is better methods, but part of that is gaining access to a whole bunch of different stuff, whether it is translations of church fathers to the Dead Sea Scrolls to like the I don't know, the Ugaritic stuff in northern Syria that was from like a Baal temple, and like etc. Nakamadi.
Yeah.
Right.
No, the archaeology, Christianity has not caught up with the archaeology.
And that's what people like Michael Heiser get their mileage from, right? Is that gap between popular Christianity and the state of current scholarship.
The gap is so much more than anything I knew.
Okay, if you're telling me that most Christians are wrong about the stuff they think is most important, I will say that's what I grew up being taught.
No,
you know.
Yes, I realize that, Sam. we're talking seriously throwing the Book of Acts out, and the Book of Acts is very, very foundational to Christianity.
So, what exactly is so bad about the Book of Acts? Because, like, what document is more historically well attested than the Book of Acts, right? Like, what exactly has trustworthy leverage over the Book of Acts? And for what reason would it have trustworthy leverage over the Book of Acts?
The Dead Sea Scrolls.
Why would the Dead Sea Scrolls have any more authority on history than the Book of Acts does?
Because they're 200 years, they're dated to 200 years before Acts.
No, they're not. They start from 200 years before and go to a little bit after when Acts was written, if I understand correctly.
Look, the closer you get to Acts, what the Dead Sea Scrolls are describing is so far away from what Acts is talking about that the best thing you can say, well, it's not the best thing, but what Robert Eisenman does say, and honestly, his book, it's 1,000 pages, and I've been like reading it like, oh my God. I've been reading it I've been reading it before bed, and I've been staying up late. Okay. And I take sleep medication.
PVK said Jacob should read commentaries on the Book of Acts if he thinks people don't debate its relationship with contemporary history. Right? Like Jacob,
it's
like
so
Protestants
much
have
worse
been
than
trying
you
to
think.
destroy our own canon for hundreds of years. We're better at it than anyone.
So much worse than you're thinking.
Jacob, like what book was written by
open. Sam?
Jacob,
when I read MMT, my jaw dropped open.
You know, people have taken DMT and said the same thing. But like, so what book is more authoritative than the Book of Acts, which was written by someone who had some amount of historical training in the mid 60s, say, you know, and had all sorts of eyewitness, you know, connections and was an eyewitness to much of the events in his own book himself.
You either have to believe that MMT is some sort of somebody. You have to believe that somebody.
So what is the content of MMT that is in so direct contradiction to the Book of Acts?
Okay, it's a letter from, as best we can tell, either Yosef is the only other person who's actually read MMT here. You could jump on thing. It is slow. It's a few. Well, there's also there is the thing as well. There's the 5-second lag that it has to catch up, Paul.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the it's either a letter from the Essenes or breakaway Sadducees to the priesthood in the temple, and it reads like a modern rabbinic responsum. Okay.
Okay. Sorry,
Meaning,
1 second. I am sending a text, but I'm listening.
meaning that at the very least, the Sadducees were much, much closer to the Pharisees than we ever assumed.
I mean, I assume, like, so, okay, great. You know, they were still recognizable groups that had similarities and differences. If we
No,
need
no, no,
to
no.
dial the similarities up higher and tone down the differences, I don't
The
see.
similarity, they're so close. They're so close.
Well, I
Sam,
mean, oftentimes the groups that
surprising
have the
to me.
biggest fights with each other are groups that are the most similar to each other, but
Yes.
disagree on, you know, what is
Yes,
the narcissism of small differences, which
Yes,
seems
but
to be
this
what you get from the Book of
circumscribes,
Acts.
but it circumscribes what was going on during the time of Jesus in ways that excludes much of what Acts says.
But again, why should some fragment from the desert be more authoritative than the Book of Acts? Just because some Jews wrote it doesn't mean it's more authoritative than what a Christian
Are you
writes.
seriously asking that?
Yes.
Because it's some ancient fragment from the desert that has that what, unless you're going to believe somebody actually created it in order to make Acts look bad.
Well, it could have been created for all sorts of purposes, and it could have all sorts of its own inaccuracies. It's not like only Christian books can be inaccurate and pagan and Jewish sources are always 100% correct. You know, like which is sometimes an assumption of literal criticism, which is an ironic stance that it takes.
Assumption of literal criticism is that people who are not involved
literary
criticism is that people who are not involved in an issue are more likely, when you get information from an objective source, which if
what's
MMT,
objective about MMT that isn't objective about Acts? Why doesn't Acts get to count as objective?
Because MMT is just a communication between two people.
Luke of Acts was written by, you know, the guy named Luke to someone named Theophilus who requested it of him. And probably funded it.
MMT is a letter from the leader of the Qumran community.
Acts is a letter from Luke to Theophilus. So, like, do the people who wrote MMT not have perspectives and motivations and biases and
you're going into apologetic mode?
I'm not going into apologetic mode. I'm undermining you.
You can undermine all you want.
So what exactly is it about? What exactly is it about MMT that's in such contradiction to Acts? Pharisees and Sadducees being similar but different is not in contradiction to Acts.
The similarities are.
So which similarities did Acts get wrong that were actually there that Acts said weren't? Like, as far as I remember, the only difference that the book of Acts says between them is that they disagreed about the resurrection and that Paul used that to his advantage when he was in a courtroom once.
No, so yeah, no, it's more about the Jews at the time of Jesus and what was going on at the time of John and what
John the Baptist.
Yeah, John the Baptist, yeah. And what the milieu was around James, the brother of John. Honestly, there's a reason why.
But Acts is from that same milieu. Acts was written in that same milieu. So why is that? Like, why does Qumran get to count as that milieu, but Acts doesn't get to count as that milieu?
When do you think Acts was written? Before or after?
After Paul arrived in Rome, but before he was killed, which would put it in like 64 or something like that. You know, early 60s.
A lot of people are. I mean, at least the academics place Acts closer to 100.
You know, like it depends what you mean also by written. Like, when is the first time we can find like transmissions of it
Right.
being copied? But if you ask when it's written, it's pretty obvious when it's written.
I'm-
It ends
I'm
right
not
when Paul
trying
gets to Rome, but it stops before he was killed
I'm
and
not
before the
trying
temple
to
was
argue
destroyed.
the point with you, Sam.
Okay. So
I-
Acts was written in the mid 60s. You asked when I thought and why I thought it, and I
Right.
gave you reasons.
Okay, and I am trying to explain to you why this is so explosive, and you're giving me arguments against it as opposed to hearing
Okay.
why it's explosive. It's explosive because when you look from a secular standpoint, if you believe that MMT is representing, so we know the Pharisees from the rabbinic tradition, and now we have a letter from what Eisenman's maximalist position is. He actually believes MMT was either written by James, Jesus, or John.
The Baptist or the
Yes,
author of
the
the
Baptist.
gospel? The Baptist. Okay.
He believes MMT was written by one
By
of those.
possibly Jesus. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Yeah. And if it's true, and frankly, now that I mean, I could understand it. Look,
What does MMT say? I'm still unclear to me. It seems like it's mostly complaining.
It
seems like it's mostly complaining that the temple wasn't taking purity laws strictly enough.
It's just a normal. When they first found it, one of the reasons it's called MMT is when they first found it, they thought it was a Mishnaic text. When it was first found, they thought it was
from Qumran? Did they find it in the caves in
from
Qumran?
Qumran.
Oh,
yes, they found 5 copies or 3 copies in Qumran and reconstructed it.
Okay, I have no reason to doubt that. But like, what's it saying that's so explosive? It seems like I'm reading the summaries of it. It seems like they're complaining about the temple not following purity laws strictly enough.
Okay, I mean, Eisenman has a lot of theories, and look, Eisenman is very controversial, but you don't have to take Eisenman's position to start drinking if you're Strugnell. And frankly, I think that's why Strugnell started drinking.
Okay, so but like, what's so explosive? It's still entirely unclear to me what's
explosive is how closely it mirrors rabbinic Judaism. That's what's explosive.
Okay, so I've never not thought that rabbinic Judaism was an outgrowth of post.
The Sadducees. I mean, we basically we thought the Sadducees were very, very different. Like the dating of the Mishnah at around 200 and the Talmud at 500, like this looks like something that's written by somebody who studies Talmud.
Okay, so it is pushing that form of stuff earlier.
Yeah, by 500 years.
Okay, so like
by the Jewish accounting, not even by the Christian accounting.
Okay, but like, what does that do? So Judaism was Jewish, all right. Congrats, I'm.
Christianity was Jewish.
I think one difference is Acts clearly has polemic and MMT doesn't to it. It appears to be a private letter. But still, so Judaism was Jewish and Christianity was Jewish. If you want to tell me that you think that Christianity was more Jewish in its origins than it was later understood to be by itself, that's a point that I always make.
It's far, far more Jewish than even I ever thought. On Sunday, when I read MMT, my jaw dropped.
Okay, why? What sentences or what content was it?
Because I could see that being published by a rabbi written today.
Okay, great. What's your angle?
That's what I said to Yosef. I'm like, this could have been published today. MMT is a reconstructed text from fragments found in Qumran.
So what you're saying is that some of the traditions and habits and style and form of writing and form of argumentation that were previously attributed to the rise
And
of rabbinic
things that
Judaism a
were
couple hundred years after the destruction of the temple might predate the destruction of the temple.
So when they're having their argument, they're having it with assumptions that, like, so he's writing a letter telling the high priest what he doesn't like about what's going on in the temple, right?
And mainly in the form of ritual purity practices.
Mostly, yeah. And the assumptions he makes, as far as, like, so the Jewish position is that what is in the Mishnah is historically accurate, but the Mishnah was written after the destruction of the temple. And honestly, even Yosef and I have.
So Yosef is saying that because it reads like it was written by a rabbinic Jew, it means that rabbinic Jewish intellectual culture was not limited to Pharisees, but was cross-sectarian.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, I've also read a lot of recent Christian scholarship that, I mean, you won't like this part, but like that ties a lot of early Christian exegesis of the Old Testament to various, kind of rabbinic style forms of interpretation, but that Christianity modified it in a Christocentric way.
Look, I am not opposed to people trying to re-understand Christianity from a stance of studying these things. I would love to see Christianity move towards things that Father Stephen and whatchamacallit, what's the bishop?
Damick. Oh, Baron? No.
N.T. Wright.
N.T. Wright.
Right? So I better understand now why N.T. Wright and Father Stephen are making the arguments that they are. Christianity, the story Christianity has been telling, I don't think you have to stop saying the story that Father Stephen is telling himself. Like, Father Stephen seems to, and I definitely want to read his book, Faith of the Apostles, because he seems to be like,
his main point is that various practices of Orthodox Christianity are much more Jewish than they appear, basically, right? And therefore are more apostolic than people like me might try and argue that they are.
And he's re-understanding Paul and what Paul says, and
Christians are always re-understanding Paul. I'm having a conversation with a Danish scholar tomorrow morning.
The further you move away from Baal, the better. But I did not realize on how much.
But I don't think that Christianity, or at least my form or whatever, is dependent on rabbinic Judaism being a late classical development. And maybe some forms or some arguments are there, but like, I don't see what the bombshell is. It's not like.
By the way, Eisenman, and so this is something that we still hear people talking about the Zohar being written in like the 1200s. What was the name? Moses de Leon writing the Zohar. Like, that's completely out the window. There is the sectarian.
So at best, it seems like you're telling me that some counter-Jewish forms of Christian apologetics are undermined by this, but not that, like, I still don't understand how the Book of Acts is in any way undermined.
Because how it portrays, for example, the Jerusalem Council, I think is well, look, when it comes down to
we only know about the Jerusalem Council because of the Book of Acts.
I understand that. But,
and kind of from Galatians, but mostly, even you could read Galatians and still not really understand what happened. Right. It's from the Book of Acts that we even know there was such a thing.
Right. But basically, the best you can do is take a new perspectives thing of Paul. You basically like the old.
Okay, so the Lutherans are wrong. Okay, that like, but I'm just kidding, kind of. But like, at best it seems to me like, Christianity doesn't have anything to fear undermining it. Like, so at best, things like MMT can help illuminate stuff that we misunderstood. But then the end result of that is that Christianity understands itself better, which has been the result of Dead Sea Scrolls and Nag Hammadi and translations from church fathers that had been in Armenian for the last 2,000 years, etc.
You're preaching to the choir. I want Christianity to understand itself much better. I am very and Yosef agrees with you. He thinks it's not as explosive as I do. I think I see why Christianity has been changing so rapidly a lot better now, having seen the text and reading James, the brother of Jesus. It's 1,000 pages long, and honestly, he rambles, and I don't think
if you write a 100-page summary for me, Jacob, I'll read it, but I'm probably not going to read that book. But like, also, like I'm the sort of Christian that thinks like we need to constantly be learning more about early Christianity to be a better restorationist, where the best way to have Christianity now is to be as in okay. Well, great, but I still don't understand what I'm supposed to have learned from MMT, other than that some of the forms of rabbinic commentary are more common among the Sadducees and the Essenes than we previously thought. And like at best I can be like, okay, well that strengthens kind of what I suspect, that a lot of the forms of Old Testament exegesis that you see in the New Testament are more Jewish than we realize. Like when Paul's doing allegorical interpretation of the Old Testament to understand Christian truth, that has its roots in some rabbinic stuff.
I think if you're seeing Paul in a way that makes Acts actually accord with the Dead Sea Scrolls, if you're seeing Paul in a way that through Acts that accords with the Dead Sea Scrolls, you're going to at the very least end up with Paul in Judaism.
So by Paul in Judaism, you mean that, so there's some sort of, and like for the record, there are some biblical Unitarians that I argue with from time to time that are very into Paul in Judaism, and I push back on them some amount because I think that they get some important things wrong. But for the people listening, Paul in Judaism is basically like early Christian communities were much more Judeo-centric, with Jews being something like what you would call Noahides on the fringes. And like, it was much more in parallel to the way that God-fearers had participated in Hellenistic Jewish synagogues than is currently understood, unless there is no Jew nor Greek anymore, sort of thing, that is somewhat understood.
That is a part of it, but also that Paul's meaning when he was talking about the law, either you're going to take my view of it, or you're going to take
what's your view of it?
My view is that Paul was a horrible person who was lying through his teeth.
What was he? What exactly was he lying about? Well, so like interestingly, so next weekend,
Acts 21. We how many times have I sent you to Acts 21?
A fair amount. So next weekend I'm going to the main Unitarian annual conference,
and you didn't invite me. Thanks a lot.
I didn't invite you. Well, you can still register. I think you might be past registration. Sorry. It's in Ohio. So I'm going to this main thing, and I got my paper accepted to present. And so I'm talking a lot about how the Eucharist is basically the Christianized form of temple worship, in a certain sense, in a weird kind of way. and therefore Jesus is not the recipient of early Christian worship. He is the leader and the offering in early Christian worship, right? That's my main point, which is, you've probably seen on the internet, lots of Christians recently are trying to make early Christians thought Jesus is God because they worshiped him arguments in various levels of detail, right? And so what?
I did not know this.
Okay, so this is a new common form of Trinitarian apologetics. Early Christians worshiped Jesus, therefore they thought he was divine in some sense. Therefore, the Trinity is much older than, people like me like to make it out to be. And so my counterpoint is like, actually, no, early Christian worship was the Eucharist, and Jesus is the high priest in heaven presenting himself as the offering to God in the heavenly temple. And that Christians participate in this in a spiritual sense through the bread and the wine, right? And that it was in the same way that Jews sacrificed animals and then participated in eating the animals in the temple, right? That's the same thing that's going on, just in this sort of spiritualized sense with bread and wine and Jesus in the heavenly temple, etc. Right? What?
Okay, I mean it's not. I don't agree with you, but
all right.
yeah.
So part of this is like really digging into the nitty gritty of 1 Corinthians, right? Because 1 Corinthians is the epistle that talks about this in the most detail, right? Where Paul explicitly parallels Old Testament altar worship with Lord's Supper worship, right? And also, what?
My favorite book, 1 Corinthians.
But
if I
part
were
of the
going to,
problem, part of where I'm going to halfway meet you, is that Paul has this tricky problem of what to do with meat sacrificed to idols, right? Because the Jerusalem
okay,
Council has forbidden Christians to eat meat sacrificed to idols. And
right.
it seems to be that MMT seems to mention similar things, right?
Yes, it does.
You can't use Gentile wheat in the bread that is made into the showbread because it's contaminated with pagan demons, right? Which actually kind of helps make a point that I'm trying to make in my presentation, by the way, but I'm going to leave that aside for the second. All right, so right, eating pagan altar meat is a form of idolatry because it's been sacrificed to idols, right? And so that is the reason why Jews and also Christians shouldn't eat pagan meat. Okay, so you're starting a church in a place like Corinth that has very few Jews and a lot of pagans who are very used to buying their meat in the pagan meat marketplace, right? And this is the problem that Paul is encountering, is that he's this mostly Gentile congregation that he is trying to get and cajole into following this, Council of Jerusalem that he knows full well about, and that if he's not in full accordance with, he's going to get heat the next time that he tries to bring the money to offer to the people in Jerusalem as, look, the Corinthians, here's a pile of money from the church in Corinth. Isn't that evidence that God's at work in the Gentiles in Corinth, right? So this is the tricky place that Paul is in, and he's kind of finding some compromises that I'm not sure everyone present at the Council of Jerusalem would be happy with. Sort of like, well, if you don't know where it came from, then it's not a problem. And like, yeah, you can kind of mind over matter the deal, right? Like if you know, like, yeah, we know the pagan gods don't exist. And like, as long as you kind of know, right, he's trying to find some exceptions to the rule while also holding up the rule, because he does say you cannot eat at the table of demons and the table of our Lord, when he's explaining why you shouldn't eat pagan meat. So he believes that, but he also kind of thinks like, yeah, you can mind over matter it in certain circumstances, but don't let people know that you're doing that because they might get confused, right?
Ultimately, the question you have to ask about Paul is, did Paul believe that Jews who convert to Christianity should circumcise their children or not?
Yeah.
You have to answer that question.
Yeah. And it's hard to get an answer to that question because of the Timothy stuff, right? And I think Paul has a similar nuance. It kind of depends, and I have to tailor my message to my audience on the circumcision question that he has on the pagan meat question. And I think that you can see his heart in that question in his answer about the pagan meat question.
But Sam, once you start your church, which should be any day now, and
if you give me all the money from your settlement, maybe then I'll start
my settlement. I just got my car. That's all I got, and it wasn't $1 million. But and chas v'chalila, God forbid, you baptize a Jew. Are you going to tell him to circumcise his
Baptize
kid?
a Jew? You don't think you should baptize a Jew? You think baptism was just for the
Not
Gentiles?
not in the. Oh, I think you should, but
No, in early Christianity, do you think that they baptized Jews?
I think that in early Christianity, people
Or
would get
Pauline, or
baptized daily.
well, that is certainly one of the old Jewish practices, but it seems very clear in multiple places in the New Testament, not just Paul, that Christianity redefined baptism to be a once and for all introductory thing.
Really? Are you
Right?
sure?
You can see that in Hebrews. You can see that certainly in the Pauline epistles. Acts seems to present it as it's the thing that gives you the Holy Spirit. And it's the way that you participate with Jesus's death and resurrection, which you are only supposed to do once, which the book of Hebrews is very explicit about. And it gets angry at people who might want to leave and come back, and then they would have to get baptized again, and that would be crucifying our Lord again. So you can't do that. Right, which is a pretty strong argument that they didn't baptize themselves daily.
Where is that from?
That's Hebrews 6, probably.
Okay, so Hebrews, we can throw
Your
that
other
out.
favorite.
Look,
I'm not throwing the book of Hebrews out. Again, the book of Hebrews has more historical relevance than MMT. It's more well historically attested. We know more about who wrote it and why and where it came from, even though it's one of the books of the New Testament that we know the least about.
It's going to be thrown by Christians out of their New Testament. It's Hebrews, and you know it.
No, there was some argument about it around in the 300s. That was but mainly because some people didn't think it was written by Paul, which they were probably right about. But
and the arguments around whether Paul wrote it recently I'm just making these up.
No, Origin talks about that, right? In 190 AD.
A recent discussion about Paul in the Christian church that I have not instigated personally.
No, right. I mean, like I told you, no one argues more about Paul than Christians do themselves. So
I know. And guess what? A lot of Christians are eventually going to be able to read MMT once it comes out of being.
But you still haven't told me the bombshell in it. Okay, so so they don't think that you're supposed to use Gentile grown wheat for showbread. Okay,
No. Okay, you have to understand the context in which it is making an argument, right? If I'm having an argument with you, right, and both of us assume that of course Genesis is in the Bible, right, and we're having an argument about what Genesis means, right, that's a very different argument than me being like, that's not part of the Bible. When
I still don't understand the analogy.
The field that the game was being played on is a different field than we thought it was being played on. When you're trying to look at the rules of the game, right?
Okay, but all you're saying is that previous versions of Christianity need to update with new information, which is something I totally agree with, and why I'm totally on board about learning more new information. And I do think that we often misunderstood for a lot of Protestant history the relationship between Christianity and early Judaism and rules about these sorts of things, and that sort of new perspective on Paul was a lot to do with that increase in knowledge. And that I think that Christianity can keep improving itself by learning more and more about our New Testament and its context. And the reason why Christians argue so much about Paul is because we care about Paul.
Okay.
And the book of Hebrews, which I still think is the master work of the entire New Testament. And you have yet to give me any convincing. It's a theological masterpiece, and you just don't like it because it counteracts some of your arguments.
No. I was mad at you because I'm like, why are you thinking that these quotes, like, we didn't know that it says in our Bible, God does not want sacrifices?
I mean, I think that you often misunderstand you're so vain you think the song is about you. Not everything in a Christian book was written to argue against the Jews 300 years later.
No.
Oftentimes, when it's trying to make a pointed point, it's making a pointed point against other Christians. That's like the book of Hebrews is more a criticism of other kinds of Christians than it is a criticism of any kind of Jew.
The idea that God does not want sacrifices predates Jesus.
Great. The Christians knew that. That's why they quoted those verses. That was part of their point.
No, I think they were quoting those verses because they didn't realize that the Jews knew that, and that's why they believe in PSA. Oh, come on. Your father was on my channel arguing that there must be a sacrifice in order for there to be an atonement.
Well,
right?
So Jacob, we're going far astray from MMT, and like it just seems like you're just like any place that I can find a place that I think is soft, I'm going to try and poke it. And
I'm not trying to poke anything. I'm just explaining to you what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that
you still all right. Please tell me, and I will give you time, and then I should probably go soon. What exactly is so explosive about MMT? And I've yet to see or understand that.
Okay, so we had our historical understanding of what history was kind of like, and updating that history is going to make a lot of people pay a lot more attention to exactly the types of arguments that Father Stephen DeYoung and N.T. Wright are making. A lot of people who think that those are wrong arguments.
When was MMT published in English? Probably like the 50s, along with a bunch of the other Qumran stuff?
No, it was published in English in the 1990s, and there was a huge court case against it because they didn't want it to be published, and it went all the way to the Israeli
I'm
Supreme
seeing that some of it was published in 1962. And then they found some more scraps. And so more of it got published as they published more and more scraps.
Sam, I can send you the court cases from the Israeli Supreme Court from the 90s. This is stuff that's coming out right now.
You know, I remember the 90s, and I remember it being more about Lion King movies. But in any case, like, so Jacob, what is so explosive about it?
I told you.
What in particularly? That could apply to MMT, that could apply to other Qumran scrolls, that could apply to the Ugaritic texts found up in Syria, you know, like
no, because when we didn't know that this was the positions of the Sadducees and probably the Essenes was so much closer to rabbinic Judaism.
Okay, so how's that not undermine Judaism more than it undermines Christianity? Like,
why would it undermine Judaism?
Well, because you guys had your own history wrong or something. I don't know.
No, see, this is the thing. It's like our history is actually even more clearly right. Like, this was part of what I was talking about.
So what about Jewish history, or what about Christian history was wrong? If you're saying some Christian scholars had a misinterpretation of something, that's very different than saying Christian history is wrong. Because it turns out like probably everyone, including Jews, misunderstood the Pharisees or the Sadducees. So like,
okay, so this is the thing. Okay. I'm not saying that Father Stephen DeYoung doesn't have a cogent story. I'm saying he's like the only person who does. I'm saying that a lot of Christians are going to have to rethink their theology in light of what we found out. That there's going to
Which part of the theology?
Well, let's go back to whether or not Jews who convert should be circumcising their children.
Okay, what does MMT have to do with that particular question?
It does not leave a place for the type of understanding of Acts that we had. Like, there did not exist a milieu in which Paul could be saying what Acts says he was saying.
What
The
was
way
Paul
a lot
saying
of
in
Christians
Acts
understood.
that is incompatible with MMT?
No. Hold on. You could reinterpret Acts. You can't keep a lot of the present interpretations of Acts.
Okay, fine. If we interpret Acts better, I'm all for it.
Okay, but that's going to be a large theological change for a lot of Christians.
In what particular respect?
Becoming a lot more like Judaism.
How so?
It depends how they come up with a version. Like Father DeYoung's version seems to be coherent as far as I can tell. I really
okay, but then that's
I
like.
only read
But
this
then, how are the
last Sunday.
Catholics are even different than what Father DeYoung's saying? Father DeYoung's saying the Orthodox
Which
have been doing it right for 2,000 years. So
No, not exactly. You have to understand, Father DeYoung, he has a very particular way. Like the people who disagree with NT Wright, a lot of them are going to have to change how their beliefs, because the laity this stuff is going to eventually get to the laity, and I think there's going to be large theological shifts in Christianity. That's what I'm telling you.
So, like,
yes, I am beyond excited about this.
Okay, but right.
What?
I think I kind of know where you're going. But anyway, I should get going because I have to go upstairs for
I
dinner
should
soon.
too.
But
Okay.
Jeff said this was fun being able to live stream the forum. All right, and Tyler, yeah, I would love Daniel Borearin to come on my channel. I think that the Jews were binitarian and the Christians were too is a much weaker argument than people suspect. But I will grant that there was some two-power-ishness that
and
I think.
Sartori keeps on throwing Summers at me.
What?
So you know of Summers? Sommers. Sartori keeps on throwing Summers at me. He's this
Summers?
Conservative. Just Sommers. He is saying that he has been making the argument that the Trinity is perfectly acceptable in Judaism.
No.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the book that most undermines two powers theology is the Epistle to the Hebrews, which seems to be explicitly written against such a theology, but that also proves that it must have existed in order for it to be written against it. So that's my short answer, Tyler. But yeah, I should talk to Daniel Boyarin.
Okay, I need to go too. Sorry I didn't answer all the people in the thing. This has been a long chat. I will have another thing later. Bye, people.
All right. You broke your records though.